10 straight losses is great for the high draft pick, but there's a real danger that the losing ways could carry over into next season.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Friday, April 4th. Thank you for making Locked On Bruins your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's podcast, we are going to discuss last night's loss to the Montreal Canadiens, Boston's 10th in a row. They've gone 0-9-1 over that stretch. They're improving their draft lottery odds, but they're perhaps developing some bad habits, or maybe there's some signs that this turnaround may not be as quick as we would like. We'll discuss that. We'll also do the tank update and preview Saturday's game against the Carolina Hurricanes here on the podcast. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Special shout out to the everydayers who already subscribe and who listen regularly. You are very much appreciated. You can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes, at Ian C. McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan. Been covering this team for various outlets for 20 years. Was a full-time hockey news writer for The Score and have been hosting this podcast since 2019. And it's been a long time since the Bruins have been on this long of a losing streak. 10th straight loss. They're 0-9-1 over that stretch. It's tied for the second longest losing streak in franchise history. Only the 1924-25 team, the inaugural Bruins, we just celebrated the centennial, that was that club, had a longer streak, and that was 11 games. So the Bruins are in real danger here of not only tying that record, but perhaps also shattering that record here with only 6 games remaining on the regular season schedule. More troubling, though, is that it was the Bruins' 12th straight game with 25 or fewer shots, which is tied, and this is according to Scott McLaughlin of WEEI, tied for the second longest streak by any team since the NHL started recording shots in 1959-60. Only the 1998-99 Vancouver Canucks had a longer such streak at 15 games. And Nikita Zadorov, after the game, was at a loss for words. He was asked, where do you start in terms of getting out of this? And he said, straight up, I don't know. He also added, the Bruins are very easy to play against. Other teams are hungrier. They want to win more. That's the bottom line. We're just not hard on the puck. We're easy to play against. Elias Lindholm, another one of the Bruins' key additions last offseason, said, this is our job. He said, quote, we're getting paid a lot of money to do this. There's people out there that are struggling. We're getting paid millions to play hockey. So it shouldn't be hard to find some sort of motivation. Now, these two players are key for this club moving forward. They are both signed for a considerable amount of time at a considerable amount of money. And yes, the Bruins traded Charlie Coyle, Brad Marchand, Brandon Carlo, Trent Frederick, Justin Brazeau, Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm are out of the lineup due to injury. But there's still a lot of players that are currently being deployed that will have key roles on this team next season, like Lindholm, like Zadorov. And you start to wonder, if this team does indeed have what it takes to quickly turn things around next season when everybody's healthy. And whether you have a lot of cap space to spend in the offseason, whether guys are going to want to come to Boston to play with some of these guys who are underperforming or aging out. Yeah, I'm sure guys will want to come and play with David Pastrnak, with Charlie McAvoy, with Jeremy Swayman when he's on his game, which he was at times last night. He was playing very well, had that unbelievable save, but the Bruins just continually outshot and could not withstand the Montreal Canadiens attack, especially their top line, which is electric. So you have Lindholm, Zadorov, you have Casey Middlestat, Pavel Zacha, Morgan Geekie, who's been arguably their second best player over the last little bit here, hopefully re-signed as a restricted free agent. On defense, McAvoy, Lindholm, Zadorov. So there's some guys who are here for quite some time. Guys who are still active in the lineup who are not performing up to par. And I look at Lindholm specifically. He's talking about getting paid a lot of money to perform. He's in year one of that 7-year, $7.75 million per season cap hit. And he has 39 points in let's see here, 39 points for the Boston Bruins so far this season, which is not going to cut it when you are making that amount of money. Yes, he's not, an offensive dynamo, perhaps. He's not a guy who's going to come in and score you 100 points, but he's also not being that strong off the puck either. This is a guy who can put up points. He's got 78-point season, regularly in the 40s, 50s. He had 82 points, 64 points not that long ago. Last season, he had 44 between the Flames and the Canucks. 76 games played this season, 39 points, 14 goals, and that's in year one. So that's what kind of, and I've said this before on the podcast, that's what everydayers will remember. This is what concerns me about the Bruins. You are hoping for a quick turnaround. You're banking on a high draft pick. You're banking on spending that cap money wisely in the offseason. Don Sweeney did great work at the trade deadline. I'm not going to take that away from him. But you look at his track record signing players. You look at the fact that Lindholm, Zadorov are here for the foreseeable future. And you wonder why it is that he's being trusted to do this turnaround. Like, the retool would be I'd have a lot more hope in the retool if the Bruins weren't tied to that money for the next several years. You know what I mean? Like, Elias Lindholm, already 30 years of age, and he's having one of the poorest seasons of his career. Is he going to get better? Is he going to feel more comfortable after a normal offseason without having to make some huge life decisions? Coming into training camp, hopefully healthy, feeling as a more established leader on the team? Or is this kind of what we can expect, and there will be an even more gradual decline moving forward? Zadorov, I think, has gotten better. He has played well. He's stepped up as a leader for this team, and he's played well defensively, even showing some offensive drive into his game as well. I'm not as worried about him, especially with the cap going up and his relatively manageable cap hit. But it's that Lindholm, you're paying him to be a top 6 player. He's been in the third mix even after the trade of Charlie Coyle. You have Matt Poitras coming up, hopefully, as a center. You have Casey Middlestat in the mix now. Like, where is he going to fit? And how much will that contract hurt them moving forward? That's something that I worry about. And the fact that there are a not insignificant amount of players on the roster right now that will be coming back next season, you wonder how this swoon will affect them mentally. Hopefully they can shake it off, understand the assignment, which is getting that high draft pick, and they can regroup and come back better than ever next season, because some guys are going to need some near career years in order to right this ship quickly. Anyways, we'll talk more about last night's loss to the Montreal Canadiens, preview the Carolina Hurricanes game coming up on the weekend, do a little tank update here as the podcast continues. The days are getting longer. There's extra sunshine, which means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching hockey or baseball, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. With longer days, I love getting outdoors for a walk or a run. Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost. And whether I'm at a game or traveling, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and keeps me feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. If you need one now, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. Thanks so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Everydayers will know that we've been doing a recent tank update. We'll get to that later in the podcast. But just wanted to touch a bit more on last night's game. The Bruins came in wanting to play spoiler against the Montreal Canadiens, a team that has really surprised this season. They're making a playoff push. They're in the wild card spot. And prior to beating the Bruins last night, they had beaten the Florida Panthers, who are a bit depleted right now in back-to-back games. Watching that game last night, you could see how energized the fan base is. They have an amazing top line in Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Uri Slafkovsky. Lane Hudson is unbelievable. The Bruins came out last night trying to play spoiler, but they just kind of got pushed around by the Montreal Canadiens of all teams. And again, you talk about the losing streak, whether or not they can turn it around. It's kind of embarrassing right now to be a Bruins fan, let's be honest. I'm trying to spin it positively and say, hey, I'll take all the losses we can get in order to get the highest possible draft pick. But at the end of the day, the Bruins will not be in the playoffs. They start in a couple weeks. We're going to have a long offseason. We will be looking at the draft lottery, breaking down some prospects. To be pushed around like that by the Montreal Canadiens, it's not fun, right? Trying to spin it. Jeremy Swayman making some great saves. Nikita Zadorov, Jacob Lauko getting into it with the opposition. Cole Koepke fought Kaden Guhle in response to a hit Guhle threw on Fabian Lysell. That's a whole other discussion. Lysell is did not look great out there at all on last night. I've said that he's played pretty well so far, but he was getting pushed around last night. Credit to Koepke for jumping in. But, man, it's way too early to write him off. But last night was not a good look for Lysell at all. The Bruins were outshot 17-2 in the second period. And, again, when asked what went wrong specifically in the second period, Nikita Zadorov just said everything. Didn't win any battles. Couldn't leave the zone. Got 1-2 shots on net near the end of the period. And the Canadians were able to take advantage, especially on a pretty bad turnover by Casey Middlestat. Lysell was fumbling the puck a little bit as well. Just was not a good night for this team. And it's not going to get much easier for them as they look to get one or two more wins before the end of the season. Again, the further they fall, the better their draft pick will be. But 2 games coming up on the weekend against the Hurricanes and the Buffalo Sabres. We'll preview that as the podcast continues. But first, let's do just a quick Tankathon update here for the Boston Bruins. Losers of 10 in a row. They're 0-9-1 over their past 10. And when it comes to pick odds, they have a 9.5% chance of getting the first and second overall picks, not and. They have a 15.4% chance of getting the 4th overall pick, 44.6% chance of getting the 5th overall pick, and a 20.8% chance of getting the 6th overall pick. So very unfortunate that, of course, they have better odds of moving down than moving up. A lot would have to go in their favor, even to stick at the 4th spot, which is kind of weird. But let's just run the tank 5 times and see what happens here. Bruins right now 4th. I run it the first time. They move up to 2nd overall, with the New York Islanders moving up to 1st overall, making a huge jump. So the Bruins would get the 2nd overall pick in the first running of the draft simulator. The second running, the Bruins would get the it's taking a long time to run this here. And again, we're talking about big-time prospects here in this draft. Michael Misa, James Higgins, Anton Frundell would be the guys that we would be looking at getting. Second running, the Bruins fall to 6th. That would be disastrous. Third running, they drop to 5th. Not great. Fourth running, they stay in 4th. So we got right now 1, 4, 5, 6. The last time we do it, the Bruins end up with the 1st overall pick. So that's not bad. 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, a whole range of things there. That's pretty much what we're looking at. 1 through 6 with a very, very slim chance of getting the 3rd overall pick. Thinking of 1st or 2nd. Hopefully this would all be worth it. But again, I have some not real questions, but until we see this team healthy with McAvoy, Lindholm, hopefully Swayman back to form, it's hard to really evaluate this team. You cannot look even at this team now since the trade deadline compared to the beginning of the season. We're going to have a new head coach, hopefully some new players in the mix, and it's going to be a very interesting and big offseason for Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, because their jobs really do depend on navigating this retool in a quick and efficient way, because Bruins ownership has no interest in a retool rebuild. They want that playoff money, and we'll see here what they're able to accomplish. The Bruins do have 2 games over the weekend. We'll preview those here as the podcast continues. Major League Baseball is here. The NHL playoffs are coming up. It's Final Four weekend, and there's no better time to get in on the action with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from Cinderella stories, underdogs, home runs, cup odds, even who's going to lift the Stanley Cup this season. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly with no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the Final Four action. Major League Baseball, Stanley Cup playoffs coming up all spring long. That's FanDuel.com for $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, the Boston Bruins have 2 games on tap this weekend, and the first one will be against the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday evening, back at TD Garden. Taylor Hall, if you have not noticed, is red hot right now for this team. He's got 5 goals over his last 5 games and has like 13 points in 12 games since being added to the mix. Hurricanes are once again a very good team. They've already clinched a playoff spot, so maybe they will tap the brakes a little bit, but probably not. The Bruins and Hurricanes have played twice already this season. Carolina with a 11-4 aggregate score advantage. They've won both games. There's no reason to suggest they will beat the Bruins will beat the Hurricanes. 0-9-1 in their past 10. Boston is. Carolina is 8-2, and I mean, there's no real reason to go much deeper into a preview than that. The Bruins then will take on the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo on Sunday. The Sabres, much to Boston's benefit, have been winning lately. They're 7-3 over their past 10 games, coming off wins over Washington and Ottawa, both playoff teams. This is a team that is, let's be honest, perpetually disappointing. The Bruins have played them 3 times already this season. They won once, but the Sabres then won 7-2 and 3-2, most recently on March 17th. The Sabres likely have a game between now and then as well. Let's see what their schedule is tonight. Actually, the Hurricanes play tonight as well, so they'll be on a back-to-back going into tomorrow's game, so that could be a benefit for the Bruins. The Sabres, let's see here, play the Lightning on Saturday, so they will be coming into things on a back-to-back as well. So the Bruins will get both teams on a back-to-back, although they too will be playing their second game in 2 days on Sunday. If anything major happens in either of these 2 games, I'll be sure to jump on YouTube, record a short. I'm also posting those on Reels, TikTok these days. Follow along on Locked NHL Bruins on all platforms so that you do not miss a thing. Big picture for this team, things are not looking great. Obviously, right now, morale appears low. This is not what Lindholm and Zadorov signed up for. But they haven't really been part of the solution either. So you can see some frustration coming in for them, but these guys are going to be counted on to help turn things around quickly. Who the Bruins can bring in to help remains a question mark. Will they have their top draft pick in the lineup as early as next season? Will Matt Poitras be able to make the jump permanently and effectively from the AHL? Could Georgi Merkulov and or Fabian Lysell be in the mix, or will they be potential trade candidates in the offseason? How will the Bruins spend their big money in the offseason beyond their own RFAs and UFAs? They do have Morgan Geekie, John Beecher, Marat Huznudinov, Jacob Lauko as restricted free agents. Patrick Brown, Vinny Lettieri, Cole Koepke as unrestricted free agents up front. I say goodbye to all 3 of those guys, maybe Koepke. On the back end, Lohrei and Ian Mitchell as restricted free agents. Henry Jokiharju and Parker Witherspoon as unrestricted free agents. I'd be resigning Jokiharju, I think. Lohrei will be taken care of course. And then you still have the goaltending tandem. Beyond that, they'll have quite a bit of money to spend, and I'm looking forward to seeing how indeed they do make use of that money. That's it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, my friends. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I appreciate you every dayers who tune in regularly. Please do check out the Locked On NHL podcast as your second listen. League-wide stories from our local experts. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will talk to you again here soon on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.